but I know you're a big Jack Kirby fan.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four was my first comic. It made me a junkie for life. I was wondering what your first Kirby run-in was.
My early experience, exposure to Jack Kirby was a lot of the Marvel stuff. Same thing. It was like, I'm going to be 60. I'm 60, and so you know, first runs of X-Men and certainly his early Captain America work and Fantastic Four and Avengers. It was Kirby. It was Thor. All the stuff was so I was a huge fan of all of that stuff. But around the age of it was probably 10 or 11 that when he went from Marvel over to DC Comics for a period of time, um, he did many great comics over there. Forever People. New Gods and all that stuff. But my favorite was Commandy. The first movie I ever saw in a theater was Planet of the Apes, and so Commandy was kind of a furtherance of that concept. And I loved it. I was enamored with it. And I think that's sort of my fascination with mutant animals, and I think that definitely carried over into the creation of co-creation of 4 mutant turtles.
Yeah, it's such an amazing comic on itself too. Like, I love you mentioned all of the DC stuff he did. My favorite stuff has become the stuff that he wrote and drew by himself. Like, I have the Eternal sitting right here. It's not DC, but all of
Yep.
that stuff where it's, Jack saying his own thing. You can say whatever you want about Stan, but like having him have his singular vision just is amazing.
Yep. No, I think that, and it's I do, and I like that because it's purity and its simplicity, and it's the beauty of this. Like, he was it, and that's, to me, it was like I have other friends that wanted to become comic book artists and illustrators or writers and stuff, and they all said they would always be like, well, what do you want to be? You want to be a penciler or an inker, or you want to be a writer? And I'm like, no, I want to be like Jack Kirby. I want to do all of those parts, because you couldn't have a truer vision if you wrote it and you penciled it and you inked it. You did the whole thing. So that was from very early on. I was that was very important to me, is to have a be part of all of that. So
Yeah, I mean, like Kirby, you've kind of stuck with your characters for a while. Like, you're still working on Turtles.
yep.
There are other Turtles books out there, other people working on the books, but do you still have creative control? Do people have to come and get the okay from you to make sure that they can go on with the Turtles project?
No, it's interesting that when after 20 plus years I stepped away, and to work on other things, like, again, inspired by Jack Kirby in many ways, is that he wasn't known for one particular character. He created universes of multiple characters, and I just had
Mhm.
so many other ideas I wanted to explore. But that was nothing like, I wasn't abandoning the turtles. It was just sort of like, that was a period, and I had the best time ever, but I wanted to do some other things. And um, early on, when Peter and I entered into the other parts of the turtle business, which was the toys, the animated shows, so many of the movies, the other turtle universes, we weren't able to continue working on the comics day to day like we did initially. But at the same time, it was handing it over to somebody that we sort of oversaw what they were doing in the early days. It was not too dissimilar to the way we grew up on our own comics. Like, Jack Kirby wrote certain issues, and then somebody else would write certain issues. I
Mhm.
remember, I was reading Roger McKenzie and Gene Colan were drawing Daredevil, and then along comes, this new penciler named Frank Miller. So you used to artistic changes and creative changes, art team. So, although I don't have any of that approval or anything like that now, I've also got the my friend Cyril Neely, who oversaw the 2012 to 2017 Nickelodeon series, jokingly would call me Obi-Wan, because it was sort of he said, like, all these kids, like, he grew up his dad owned a pizza parlor in Philadelphia, and he grew up eating pizza, working the pizza place, drawing turtles, and then he was running the Turtles cartoon show. So, I get to work with these young people that want to involve me in the concept and say, "Is this okay? Is this okay?" Not that they have to; it's just out of respect, and I love them for that. I feel it's very precious to me, because they certainly don't have to ask, but they do, and appreciate that.
So at this point, it has a life of its own. You can let it, do its own thing.
Yep, 100%.
So Frank Miller is one of your influences. I was wondering if you watched, Akira Kurosawa or any samurai movies
Yes.
at the time. Okay, good. That's
Oh
great.
no, that was, it was funny that Mike, because what I loved about what Frank Miller, when he, because Daredevil was number one of my favorite comic characters. Daredevil and Batman are probably number 1 and 2, and Captain America right around. I like the more kind of grounded sort of guys, if you will. But when I was growing up in a very small town in Maine, when we first got cable TV, there was a cable channel out of Boston that would run on one weekend martial arts theater. So they'd have multiple martial arts movies. Then the next weekend they would do monster movies, Godzilla movies and stuff like that. But I always loved the martial arts stuff because it was like, man, it's like Bruce Lee, and we just love all that stuff. So I loved when Frank Miller brought those elements and influences into Daredevil. It was just sort of boom. It was amazing. But of course, Yojimbo, anything, Ron, Kagamushka, Kurosawa was just the bomb to me. It's like when you discover that and you've actually watched those on the big screen, it was like holy heck. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you watching it on your phone doesn't cut it. You need to watch it.
Yeah.
So the Turtles were published in 1984. Was self-publishing at that time common? Aside from Dave Sim and Wally Wood,
It was still relatively new, and thanks to the guys like Shel Dorf and people that it helped build the direct market, selling directly to comic stores and those kind of things. It literally created it. It gave an outlet for underground publishers like Last Gasp and Ripoff Press and that stuff, but a lot of self-publishers like Richard Corbin and to me, I remember, in the late 70s, I stumbled upon Cerebus in a comic store in Boston, and it was like that was sort of like the heavens parting and the angels singing, and you're like, it's like this guy that did this wonderfully written parody of Conan the Barbarians with an animal character, and it was self-published, and he had full creative control, and that was incredibly inspirational, and that was really, it gave you an outlet that instead of getting stacks of rejection letters from Marvel and DC, because you'd have to work a lifetime to get as good as some of those guys.
Right.
Underground publishing gave you an outlet to, even if it wasn't written the best, it wasn't drawn the best, it still gave you an outlet to be out there and be creative and follow that dream, which was what Peter and I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you have cooking up right now? Last Ronin, I think, is wrapping up. You're doing, you're part of Rob Liefeld's Snake Eyes book that's coming up. Is there anything else to look out for?
Of course, it's one of my favorite projects right now, which has actually been sidelined just a little bit because of Last Ronin, and it's not a complaint, trust me, because Last Ronin was really it was a surprise that it was greenlit at the last minute by Nickelodeon under the auspices of what I want to do. 200 pages, this big epic story, and it's taken a lot of time to get it done right, but I have a project with my friend David Avalone. It's called Drawing Blood, and so David and I came up with a basic concept. I'd written on it for a couple of years, and then David and I sort of co-created it, reinvented it into what became Drawing Blood. 2 successful Kickstarters, and artists like Ben Bishop, which has brought to light the main story in Drawing Blood, and then Troy Little, who's mind-blowingly fantastic for some of the flashbacks and the radically rearranged Ronin ragdolls. But honestly, we're and again, I don't want it to sound wrong. It's like I'm excited to wrap up Last Ronin because it's just been so fantastic. I've got 1 issue left to go, but I can't wait to get back into Drawing Blood, because it's a real passion. It's designed to be 12 issues. We're quite a bit behind on volume 2 from the Kickstarter supporters, but there'll be 1 more series. It'll be, like I said, 12 issues when it's completed, and it's a dream project.
Do you have a go-to Kurosawa film?
Man, it's like I would say, well, there's nothing like Yojimbo, and that was like, because it was in its raw and it's black and white, and it's because it was like one of those things when I saw Fistful of Dollars and
Mhm.
the first love and passion for the Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, as they call them, and stuff. That was until you realize that how much of that Sergio Leone had really embraced,
Yeah.
been influenced by Yojimbo. But Yojimbo is definitely up there, and it's something I could watch. And certainly when I'm drawing, it's like I can watch it with the sound off and still have it, so it's not too distracting if I'm writing. But then Ron, to me, is like there's big epic, dialogue scenes and stuff like that. But when you get to the battle scenes, holy
Yeah.
guacamole, so to speak. It's just mind-blowingly fantastic. Is that's when you sort of put your pencil down and you stare at it and go like,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Just
amazing.
five more minutes. Just have you seen Akira Kurosawa's letter to Sergio Leone where it's like, I like the movie, but pay me because you just ripped off my story.
No, I know, because I know I had not seen that, but I know there was a court case, and I know that Leone lost and had the he had to pay. There was some comeuppance, but it's the same thing. Like what the beauty of Kurosawa and what he did, he changed how people approach those kinds of scenes and that kind of material, much like John Woo, with the Sideways Gun did to what Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks did to war movies. It just
Mhm.
sort of, it's like once you sort of shown another way and you've got somebody brilliant that sort of takes it there, then you can't help but be inspired. And then certainly for me is, um, I always say that the Turtles came out of the love and inspiration of the giants. I stand on the shoulders of Peter Laird, as well as like the Kirbys and the people that inspired us to draw and be creative and pursue this. And so you can't help but mimic what they did as you steadily evolve to your own style. And I think that's what's the same for those kind of stuff. It's like once you've seen it, it's like the world changed. Like, well, the Matrix. It's like,
Yeah.
remember, I remember I had heard nothing about the Matrix, and a friend of me invited me to. So with movies like the Matrix, like somebody I had not heard that much about it, and a friend that had tickets to one of the premieres invited me. He said, "Hey, it's a Keanu Reeves martial arts movie." And I said, "I love Keanu's fine as an actor, but I don't see him as a martial artist. But let's go watch it." And I just remember the first 3 to 5 minutes of the movie. I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
But yeah, once you see it, it takes you there, and that's fantastic.
I mean,
Inspiring.
talking about, I didn't mean to cut you off, but speaking of floodgates, like, the Matrix goes over to John Wick, and now that's all he does. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so right. No, you're so right. And I enjoy, that's one of those I like, except for, when they, I love dogs, so that I hated that. But no, but I love those movies. I think it's the John Wick. It's a live action video game.
is there anything you think we missed? Anything you want to throw out there?
No, I think that I always like to wrap up these conversations with a thank you to the fans. Certainly that I have the best job and the best career because I have the best fans. So it's like, as I spent my entire life drawing comic books, and when we're done talking, I'm going to go back to drawing comic books. And I love that. I couldn't do it without the support of the fans. And then, people always ask how they can keep up with what I'm doing. I always tell them to go to KevinEastmanStudios.com. It's our fan site, which tells you sort of when we're doing this, that, and the other thing, especially getting back to shows in 2022, which we're looking forward to getting back out there again and seeing everybody. So, but yeah, if they have any questions or any interest, go to KevinEastmanStudios.com. And again, a big thank you to all the fans.